DC, as in Washington, DC, is looking to become the 51st state. So some people that okay, so here in the United States, we have 50 states. Everybody keeps saying like Puerto Rico is the 51st state, or whatever country out there is the 51st state. Well, the Virgin Islands is the 51st state. Everybody wants to be the 51st state. Washington D.C., which stands for DC stands for District of Columbia,
I
isn't a
didn't know
state.
that. I didn't know that.
No.
No.
DC stands for District of Columbia. It's literally a district. Um there isn't a governor or a state legislator. Instead, they have just a mayor and a DC council. That's it. That's it. It doesn't run like any other state where we have like all this other stuff in there, this full legislator there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the reason why they want to become, and they've been fighting for this one for a while to become a state, because they don't get the same stuff as what a state gets. So when they're just like, oh, we want to make sure the vaccine goes to X amount of states, the district gets left out of everything. And there's citizens that live there. There's people that live there. It's not just like it's not just a town of businesses. There's people that actually live there.
This is Washington D.C., where your capital is. No,
That's the capital. That is the capital. Like they have a whole set of different rules in there. And what's crazy is the District of Columbia, Washington D.C., lies in between the state of Maryland and the state of Virginia. It's in between two places. So they're kind of saying like, why are we not a state? Like this doesn't make sense. Why are we like it just doesn't make sense. So I'll just read something here. The government of the government of Washington can establish legal codes which function like state laws and regulations. These laws cover everything from liquor, gun control to unemployment compensation to food and drug inspection. Washington operates its own police force, its own public school system. It also has its own separate court system, including an attorney general. But through something called home rule, which allows Congress to invalidate any law passed by the DC Council, Congress still retains the power of veto over city decisions.
it acts like a state. It has all the laws and the legislations and the policing force of a state, but they're like, nah, we're just not going to call you a state. And,
Yeah.
And I was just doing some quick Googling when you were reading that out, right? Because I'm like, okay, it sounds like a state. And you were like, there's people that live there. I'm like, okay, well, how many people live in DC? So I pulled it up real quick, and they're like close to 700,000 people. Wait, hold on, let me make sure I'm right. Yeah, close to
That's right.
700,000 people. And I'm like, okay, there are states that are smaller than this, and I pulled it up real quick, and we're looking at there's if Alaska can be considered a state, why can't? Okay, I rest my case.
It makes no sense.
I rest my case with Alaska.
It absolutely makes no sense of why, one, it's not a state and why it's not treated as a state. But yeah, our capital is a district of Columbia.
See, it's different here in Canada. We have Quebec that wants to be its own country, not its own, like it's its own province already. We're like, we want to be our own country. And when they pull votes, it's like 50% and 50%. So if they just go over that 50 to 51, they become their own country. And it's like, what?
Yeah. Well, so here's a fun fact, and I think I might have talked to you about this, but California almost became its own country. The state of California. Now, some people might be like, wait, and you know what? It actually went through a voting process back in the 90s, which it did pass. It was on its way of becoming its own country. Some people might be like, what the hell? Really? Dude, put it this way. Back in the 90s and early 2000s, the United States economy was number one. followed really close behind. Number 2, China. And then you had number 3, somebody else. Number 4, somebody else. Number 5 was California by itself. The state of California had a world's economy ranked number 5. Number 6, I was like, the United Kingdom. I'm like, seriously? Like, and I think number 7 was like Australia. I was like, bro, really? Like, California was ranked number 5 by itself. The United States ranked number 1. They took out California and just looked at the other 49 states. Ranked number 1, California number 5 by itself. It would have become the way it was going, the direction it was going. Spain and Portugal is a great example. Portugal is right on the bank of Spain, and they speak Portuguese, and Spain obviously speaks Spanish. But it's very similar to that, like where Portugal is right up against Spain, but they're like, nope, we're our own country, we're our own everything. The language is very, very similar, but California was literally like that close. The thing that stopped California, which people don't know about, was 9/11. When 9/11 happened, that whole thing of California breaking off and doing its own thing stopped. And the reason for that was because all the major militaries, dude, the Marine Corps boot camp, West Coast Marines, are in San Diego, California. Camp Pendleton, one of their biggest bases, California. They have all these different bases, big bases and big stuff here in California, that they had to start mobilizing people, out to the Middle East to try to capture all these other people that happened. And, I don't want to get too far into that whole rabbit hole, but they were that close. It would have been interesting if California said, hey, we're going to become our own country. And then Washington, D.C. is like, well, we could still become 50 states.
Eh? but quick question here, though, because I'm not huge on understanding how all this politics or whatever works, so I'm not going to pretend like I know. But I can see that DC has a seat, but they're not allowed to vote. Is that because they're not a state?
Because they're not a state.
So they're the capital. All of the politics happen there, but they're not allowed to vote.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done.
Gotta love America. Got to love America.
Great when Alaska can vote and they're not even attached to you. They have to go through Canada.
Yeah. That was us claiming them. We staked that. That's a whole other history. That's a history story right there about Russia and all that crap. We'll save that to another day.